Oh my gosh. That was an interesting story. Thank you for sharing that. We don't have much time, so I think maybe I'll just offer just a little bit of a reflection on what Stephen was talking about. Zen Master Sung San always encouraged his students to travel around. He always traveled around. He's known to have said, a high-class Zen master sits on the mountain and all the students come to him or her. But a low-class Zen master has to go around and around and around. And I think he was, being self-effacing when he said that, because he was talking about himself, having to go around and around a lot. He was in motion pretty constantly. And also, in the Buddhist time, the monks weren't allowed to stay anywhere for more than 3 days unless it was during the rainy season, and then they were in a retreat. So traveling is part of our family tradition. And as Stephen pointed out, you go someplace with an idea, and then somebody shouts at you to pick your shoes up off the floor, and your mind opens up a little bit. Might not be someone shouting at you to pick your shoes up off the floor, but it might be something that opens your mind a little bit. I personally have done a lot of traveling, and I don't really enjoy it. My body doesn't really like having to be jostled around from place to place. But I still do it because I'm a musician, and although in the last couple of years I haven't done anything because I'm afraid to get on a plane, but eventually it'll change and we'll be back out roaming around, going around and around. But even in our daily lives, if we don't go on a plane and take a trip and pay money to stay in a hotel or something, we can still actually keep this mind of going around, never staying in one place for more than 3 days. That doesn't mean literally never staying in one place for more than 3 days. It means not being attached to our surroundings, not only attempting to surround ourselves with comfort, or being squeamish or cautious about meeting a new person, or addressing some situation that we find ourselves in with some kind of direct action. That's also a kind of experience that's similar to going to a new place and looking at the list of things we can do and going and doing some things. We can do that in our everyday life as well. There's many opportunities to meet and talk with someone we haven't been inclined to meet and talk with, or to help somebody who we might be slightly repulsed by or cautious about, or to take help from somebody who is offering but we may not trust. There's all these kinds of situations in everyday life, just in Lawrence, Kansas, or wherever you happen to be, to experience the same kind of opportunity. So I would just like to reflect that Stephen's story is wonderful. It's about a place that 30 years in the making to go and visit this place, and yet somehow it's also not special. That the kind of awakening to seeing things as they are for a split second is available to us always, every day, every minute, every second in our lives. So thank you, Stephen, for bringing that story to us. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
Jennifer.
And I live outside of Lawrence, so I practice here with Kansas Zen Center. I want to ask about prostrations. Prostrations is probably the one type of practice that I struggle with the most, partly because of my own body. But can you talk about the importance of prostrations and the value of doing them?
Okay, I'll try to do that. Um, I'll start, though, by saying I was once young, and I had a body that was willing to bow, and I had heard that doing a lot of bowing was good. And so I did that because I was young and uh, didn't really have any hindrance about bowing, and I thought it was something that would be good. for whatever, youthful reasons. I did a lot of bowing. One time, though, in my zeal, I hurt myself and I couldn't bow. The story was I was in a kyolche and I was doing 1,000 bows a day, waking up at midnight and doing, extra hundreds of them and then throughout the day. And that was kind of like in those days, what we thought was, strong practicing. And about halfway through the retreat, in the dead of winter, I was walking down the road from the monastery in Providence Zen Center down to the Zen Center during work period. And I slipped on the ice and I went, like a pratfall in a cartoon. My feet went above my head and then I smashed down onto the ice and hurt myself. And so I couldn't do my precious bowing. That was the worst part about hurting myself, is I couldn't do my precious bowing, and I'd become very attached to them. I'd also become very attached to the notion that I was doing 1,000 bows a day and that anybody else might notice that and think I was wonderful, And so an older student, not the teacher presiding, but an older student who happened to be a friend of mine, and I had a chance to chat about this difficulty I was having. I couldn't do my 1,000 bows a day and I hurt myself. And he said, well, in our school we have a provision for if you can't do a bow. And he said, if you can't do a full prostration, then just bow from the waist. But if you can't just bow from the waist, then just drop your hands. And he said, but if you can't just drop your hands, just bow your head. And if you can't bow your head, just let your eyebrows come down. So that's a little bit about my attitude about the importance of bowing. Like anything, there are some people who will tell you, if you have any problem at all, then do more bowing. There's some people who really benefit from that and will give that advice, But for some folks, it's like someone who's in a wheelchair and you say, the way to solve your problem is climb those stairs. Right? And sometimes that advice isn't necessarily pertinent to an individual. It might be a kind of good general advice. It's part of our tradition. It's one of our forms. Bowing is good, unless you can't do it. And then you have to find a way to embody the spirit of bowing, even if you can't necessarily do the physical activity. And that's the important thing. So when my friend said, if you can't even bow your head, just let your eyebrows come down. That's my bowing for the day. Right? But you can do 1,000 bows a day with a bullshit mind. Or you can bow your head in time with your brothers and sisters with the most beautiful, sincere mind. So you have to check in with your body and see what's best for you, what works for you. But most important is whatever kind of bowing that you do, then keep a very sincere mind when you do it. Because the spirit of bowing is you put yourself down on the ground. You put your ideas and your mind and your ego and all of that other bullshit on the ground. And you humble yourself to the moment. Not to the Buddha, not to some teacher or to anybody else. You just humble yourself to the moment. It's something very, very interesting and profound about putting yourself on the floor, putting your forehead on the floor. I'd rather if we did 3 bows on a bare wood floor and we all really did it than if we did 100 bullshit bows. Right? And everybody is in charge of that for themselves. We don't need to mandate this. What kind of mind do you keep when you bow? That's everybody's own choice. So we try that. Okay. Thank you for your question.
I have a question.
Okay.
Could you just give us a quick introduction of yourself? Because I
Oh,
don't
sure.
people know who you are necessarily.
Yeah. My name is Tim. I'm a Judo Popsanim in the Quantum School of Zen. I live in Tacoma, Washington. I'm the guiding teacher of the Seattle and Tacoma area Zen Center called Ocean Light Zen Center. I've been here since 2006, and before then as well. I came from here, started practicing here. Until 2000, between 1994 and 2006, I was primarily located at the Providence Zen Center. During that time, I was a monk, became the abbot of the Zen Center. I received Inca in 2001, continued to live and teach at the Providence Zen Center and travel around and teach a lot. De Kwang Sanim, who I'm sure some of you may know, was my primary teacher and the guiding teacher of the Zen Center when I was there. And I'm also a guitar player. I make my living playing guitar.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, or maybe some comment about Stephen's talk or anything like that?
Tim, it's Tim here. And recently I listened to an interview that about your jazz career. And then you also share quite a lot of experience about a practitioner and also as a Zen teacher. And you made this one line and you said, well, you can never really do better in Zen, but if you practice Zen, then the rest of your life probably will get a little better or clear. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Okay, thank you. I think I might know what you're talking about. I don't think I would have said that, but I'll try and address the question anyway. I said something at the Providence Zen Center a couple of weeks ago during one of these types of things. And I said, Zen doesn't really help you. And a lot of people's faces kind of got a little bit doubtful. What is he talking about? What am I doing here if Zen's not going to help you? And what I could elaborate a little bit is that you don't need Zen to help you. But you don't realize that, so you practice Zen. And then if you practice Zen sincerely over some time, you might also gain some insight into the fact that the reason you don't need any help is because you're already complete. There's nothing extra outside of yourself that you need to fix anything. But the practice of Zen points over and over and over to that. So it's a little bit like we say, selling water by the river. There's this artifice of robes and Zen centers and Zoom meetings and names of places and titles of teachers and all of that stuff. And yet all of that stuff is only pointing to something that you already absolutely are. I was going to say possess, but then even that's too separate. You don't even possess this thing because you and it aren't separate. If you lose the idea through practice over time that you and it are somehow separate, if you come to the realization that you and it are not separate, it being the better version of you that's going to appear one day if you practice Zen, then it's already appeared. So the idea that this man who asked me this question, he was looking for some kind of the nature of this question is, well, how screwed up were you before you started practicing, and then how wonderful are you now? I think we can all relate to that, right? We probably ask ourselves that question. Truth is, we never know, first of all, because we don't know how screwed up we were, and we don't know how wonderful we are, and we have no way to compare the two. So what Zen points to in its sort of most clear moments of Zen teaching is that that you don't need to fix anything, you don't need to improve anything, you don't need to become better than anything, and Zen won't make you that. Mostly what we need to do through practice is to drop all our idea about how we are and just be what we are in the moment, over and over and over, moment to moment. So, but that's a little bit of a hard sell, you know. So some people actually, you know, believe that Zen's going to be something that will make them better. And then at the Providence Zen Center, I didn't elaborate like that, but then somebody who's, you know, there, who's actually a wonderful man in our school, he stood up and he said, "I got a bone to pick with you." And I said, "Oh, what?" He said, "You said Zen won't make you better, and I got to tell you, when I first started, I was really screwed up, and now I'm better." And so then I just smiled and I said, "Be careful. Because as soon as you think you're better, you're screwed." So that means throw away everything you have in this equation. Dump it in the trash. It doesn't help you. You know, equating yourself with your past memories of yourself about better or worse is absolute crap. So pick your shoes up off the floor. Okay? One more question.
So question. It's a wonderful teaching. Can you correlate do no harm and the mind that feels that it needs to learn how to do no harm in relation to what you just taught?
What I just talked about is doing no harm to your mind, doing no harm to yourself, doing no harm to your being. And that's where it has to start. I can't go outside and just try and be nice and not harm anything if I'm constantly harming myself by comparing myself to a past idea or projecting myself to a future idea. So it really is, there is a kind of provisional teaching that in our actions we would be kind and do no harm. And that's wonderful, because people are harming each other all the time. We need something to inside of the body of the teaching that convinces people, if only intellectually, to that it's not a helpful thing to harm others or other things. That's good, solid, important teaching. But wrapping our brain around it intellectually won't help. You know, we see it over and over in our very lives. We paint a little picture of the Buddha and we put our face in there and we pretend we're wonderful. We pretend that we're kind and sweet and reasonable people because we've been told by the teachings that it's supposed to be like that. But then somebody pisses us off and we blow up and we have a big problem. And we do it over and over and over, and then we just become disappointed with ourselves. "Oh, this practice is no good. I've been practicing every day for 30 days and I still get pissed off. I still, kicked my dog. What the hell? This ain't no good," right? I'm being silly there, but it can be like that, right? This whole idea of sort of pretending that we're going to be good people because it's a good idea to pretend, that is not as helpful as really investigating what you are. What is this thing that's going to do no harm? That's a more valuable pursuit than trying not to do harm. I hope that was helpful. What time is it? Is it time to finish? Yeah. Okay. I can't stay